Hi, this is Brett Hodson. Welcome to a overview of Sage Intacct Construction. I'm going to be providing a real high-level overview, touching on some various areas of the system, and with the idea of just giving a comprehensive view on what's here in the system, touching on some various aspects of the overall Sage Intacct Construction platform, and then answering a few questions. So with that, let's just go ahead and get started. What you're looking at right now is the main menu of the Sage Intacct platform. You can see that the person who's logged in is Brett Hodson. Looks like I have a message. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm at top level. For those of you that have more than one entity in your business, Sage Intacct Construction is very well suited for a multi-entity, multi-company type business. You can see here I have a service department, I have a development company, a GC, residential, really just about everything. Again, for those of you that just have a single entity, great. That's something you could always expand to later. Depending upon your role in the company, you're going to have different information presented to you. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a dashboard, specifically a controller type dashboard. And what you can see here is just some information that I, as a controller, might be interested in. All of the information in the system is driven by date, so I can see where we're at as of today. I can roll backwards and forward in time. If I want to move back a couple years to see where we were a couple years ago, I could certainly do that. I have a very basic chart here of budget versus actual expenses, and I see my actual expenses take a big hop here in November. Maybe I want to drill into that and investigate what's causing that. I can see that I have a large depreciation number here. So if I click into that, I can see all these details and actually drill into the individual transactions. One of the neat thing about Sage Intacct Construction is that you can go from dashboards to detail. You can also put notational type information and chats in the system rather than doing this in email or doing it in text message or doing phone numbers. It's always will be here in the system, and you can follow this. So I noticed this a little bit earlier today. So I sent a note to one of my colleagues, Mike. It looks like he hasn't responded to me yet, asking the question, hey, instead of doing this annually, can we book this monthly? Again, I mentioned that the dashboards are role specific. So here as a controller, I'm looking at AP aging, AR aging by job, that sort of thing. But you'll notice right up here at the top of the dashboard that you could filter, again, this person being a controller, they could look at a project, they could look at a division, they could look at information by customer, they could look at information by vendor, all quite easily. I'm going to change gears here a second, and let's look at this information from a project perspective. So right here, I have a project performance dashboard. And so it's as it pulls it up again, you'll notice that I'm looking at information as of the end of March. I can move that backwards and forwards in time. I'm looking at project margin. Here's a list of the projects that I have going on. And you can see here that we have a traditional project type detail with contract estimate, purchase orders and subcontracts, commitments, what we bill or costs, and some margin calculations. If I wanted to drill into these details, like right here, I can see that looks like our billings are a little bit ahead of our costs. I could click into that and see all of the billings that we've submitted and review those. So it looks like we might have submitted 2 billings in July, so we need to go back and double check that. As we scroll down the screen, you can see that the system is very orientated towards P&Ls looking at it different ways. So I can see a P&L statement by project. So you can see these are various projects we have here. Or we could flip it around, look at it by customer. So we can see our P&Ls by customer. Or I have my two top project managers, Dennis and Greg, and I can see P&Ls of the projects oriented by each of those. Of course, good old-fashioned reports are available to you also. So if I wanted to bring up a project detail and run that, print that, those are also available to you also. So in addition to the dashboards, drill downs, maybe a good old-fashioned report, nice clean presentation, lots of reports come with the system, and all of which can be modified. So let's have a look at a little more granular detail. How are we doing on the hotel group versus the warehouse group? So again, you could pull up and filter off by what we call dimensions. This is the ability to tag transactional information and slice and dice and see things different ways. So looks like we're doing pretty darn good. Very nice margins there. And we could move over and look at things for the warehouse group. Likewise, doing pretty well there too. Or we could look at things by project manager. Again, if the system is set up such that as a project manager's signing in, they would only see their information, and that's all they would have access to. So let's take a look at a project record, and let's say that I want to look at let's say this Amazon warehouse in Kansas City. So pretty straightforward information you can see here. Project ID, lots of ability to format these different ways. We can have different types for sorting and viewing information. The customer that we're doing the project for. Again, this is that messaging information. Looks like we've had quite a bit of commentary on this particular project, which stays there forever. If I go along the top, the tabs here, I can see where we have the project estimate set up for the project. One of the unique things about Sage Intacct Construction is that you can have like original design estimate and a final working estimate and report against any of those. Also, estimates can flow over from Sage Estimating. So if you're a Sage Estimating user, with the push of a button, it'll set up the project and push your budget in there. So this is the project budget that we have set up for this specific project. So along with that, setting up the project budget, of course, setting up a project schedule values. So as you move through the applications, very straightforward approach. The menus can be moved around. Again, you only have access to what you're permitted to see. So I'm on projects here. I want to go to project contracts. So I can see all my projects set up here. And let's say I want to look at Lucky Superstore right here. So if I click edit, I'm going to see the header information for the project. And as I scroll down, I can see the schedule value line items for it. One of the really nice things about setup of schedule values along with the budget, those can be imported from external places. So whether it's a Sage estimating system you're using or you have a schedule value set up in a spreadsheet, quite easy to import them. So along with part of that project setup, let's say that we have some subcontracts to set up and process. So a complete workflow around purchase orders, subcontracts, change order requests, change orders are all contained within Sage Intacct Construction. So let's go ahead and pull up subcontracts. So you can see here a list of subcontracts we have in the system here. So I have one here to Adams Electric. I'm going to go ahead and pull that one up. And as I scroll down, I can see here's the how the subcontract's built. So it's a $400,000 subcontract. We set it up in 2 line items, basically rough and finish with 10% retainage. If I scroll up here to the top of the screen, look at the history of it, I can see that this subcontract has had an invoice placed against it. So if I click on that right here, I can see the details of that invoice. I can see basically a vendor has, the subcontractor has invoiced us for half, and we have a file attachment with that subcontract where they gave us a pretty basic 50% due for what is their invoice to us. So with with the costing side of things, obviously we're going to have payables as part of that process. For those of you that would happen to have inventory, you can issue inventory to projects. For those of you that would happen to do service work order style jobs, we have a service work order system. I'll be covering that on another session. Stay tuned for that. But let's move over to payroll. So for those of you that have a construction payroll, we have a purpose-built construction payroll here. And again, what's nice about the setup of the system is that you can use a dashboard to drive your overall processing. So, instead of just having the tasks that you have in a menu, I can look here and see, well, how are we doing for cash, along with those workflow checklists that I have over here. If we start with getting that time in the system, that can arrive a variety of ways. You can enter in individual timesheets in the system, or you can use some sort of time collection system, whether it's from Sage or whether it's from another vendor. And I want to look at my timesheets for. I need to be in the right company here. I was at top level, so that would be like a holding company, but all of my employees are here in the general construction company. And so now when I select that, and we're going to look at the hourly for past week. So I can see time that's arrived in here. People that we normally process as part of our routine payroll, I can see that we haven't seen any time in here yet for them. Maybe they're off work that week, or maybe they're just late to get the time submitted in from the field. Looking down through here, I can see that Jose only has 37 hours. So let's go ahead and open that up. And looking through here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, it looks like I don't have any hours for Friday. So what I can do is just click this little button right here, and I could go ahead and add hours. So I'm going to add that he worked 3 hours on Friday. I could put in a note there, Jose called me to turn in this time late. And now you can save it. And then if I go back to this, to the main view, all that looks good. And I can approve whatever time cards are ready to be submitted for further payroll processing. Once that's done, when we look at process and post checks, this works very similarly to those of you that use Sage 300, the process payroll, except that it's much more interactive. So I'm going to use dates from the past 2 weeks. You can see I have one approved check. So let's go ahead and look at that. So it gives me essentially a visual of what their check would be for the earnings, for the taxes, for fringes that we're paying. And if I see something that I need to do a last minute edit on, instead of having to go back and reprocess and redo things, I can actually just click and open up, and perhaps he should have submitted 4 hours of overtime instead of 2. You could just adjust that right here. The system will automatically recalculate the checks for you. In addition to that, how you do the processing, what's really nice about the payroll system is the notion of how pay rates, for those of you that are union, the unions work also. So if I was to just bring up an employee record here real quick, and let's say that I want to sort this by, again, moving back here into the right company. And I want to bring up, let's say, Dennis Sanford. He's a laborer. I can see the effective dates for his benefits. There's also the ability for the system to actually calculate PTO and store it and have you guys take it, something we've really never had in our payroll systems before. The ability to do reciprocity, multi-state payroll, all that kind of stuff is here too. I mentioned that the system is set up for those of you that would happen to do unions. How they do the levels or trades inside of a union are really pretty nice. Here you can see I have a trade called carpenter, and then down below it I have levels: apprentice, foreman, journeyman, with a percentage of. So the ability to set up the pays, taxes, fringes, deductions, have things factored, and then have effective dates, meaning, when do these rates and benefit packages come into play, are really, really handy. So I could have this local 220 table that became effective 1/1/23, and maybe, it's June and I get next year's rates. I can go ahead and set that up for next year. So I just clicked duplicate, and I create the effective date of 01/01/2024. And then this table will automatically become effective when we roll into that date. So maybe it happens to be on a Wednesday. Maybe you get mid-year updates on various types of things. What's also nice about this is that as you go along, you're going to have a history of all these effective dates, whether this has to be union benefits and rates or pay rates, that raises that you'd have with an employee. All that stays in the system and is very, very straightforward and easy to see. When it comes to reporting, Sage has decided to go ahead and use Atrix as the reporting engine. So the reports that you would expect to see are in here. So, your Department of Labor certified wage report, that's certainly in here. Or if, for those of you that, if we had anybody that's on the call today, Illinois has their own version of a certified report. So does Missouri. Missouri has, I believe that one's called a LS57. That's in here too. So all those reports, for those of you that are currently using a Sage 300 payroll or Sage 100 payroll that's using Atrix, works in a very similar way as what you had before. All right. So we've talked a little bit about costing side of things with payables, with a subcontractor invoice, with payroll, of doing that. Well, what about billing out the job? So let's go have a look at that. So when we go to when we go to, we have various types of billings we can do. We can do quick bills. I'm going to do a project type bill. So you'll notice here that I'm going to select the project contract. And let's say that we're going to bill out the Lucky Superstore. So this is the date. It pre-fills with the customer and so on. We're going to bill this out through the end of the month. And you'll notice right here where we can go ahead and update the system, or we could do it as a draft or a pencil copy. I'm going to select draft, click preview. And so now what you're going to see is where you can update. So here's the header of the invoice. You can have auto billing numbering on. I don't, so I'm just going to use the date. So you can see right here that we actually haven't billed any of this project out. So I could just type in amount I'm going to bill. Let's say I'm just going to do 10% across the board here. And if I wanted to go in and adjust something, let's say we want to make that an even $10,000, you could certainly do that. It's just going to recalculate the other items. So we can click Create Invoice right here. One of the things I like to point out is that you'll notice down here at the bottom where I have some different items, selected time and material expense. One of the things we've never had in Sage 300 is the ability to take unbilled costs and have them pre-fill your completed this period, to use that to jumpstart the billing process. That's something that Sage is about ready to release with Sage Intacct Construction. So you're going to be able to put in that date range, pull up the items that are unbilled, roll them onto the invoice to help you with your billing process. And then as far as generating the invoice, emailing it directly out of the system, you can go ahead and have the system do that for you. It'll automatically save attachments, so everything's in one spot here in the system for you. One thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap up here is that the reporting tools are exceptional in Sage Intacct Construction. Crystal reports, no, that's not what you utilize here. So the ability to create financial statements and edit them in a variety of ways. You can see here I have P&L by vendor and different things, or here's a project overview report. And so if I click on that, and go ahead and run it, it's just a simple linear type report. And when I open this up, it's going to show me all those specific details. So the tools to build these are much easier, much more visual, and things that we at Bangert will help you guys with. So with that, it looks like we're just about out of time. So I want to thank everybody for attending our webinar today. I'm sure there's some open questions. Feel free to submit those in the comments section, or feel free to get in touch with us at www.bangertinc.com. Thank you very much for attending today. Take care. Goodbye.